This episode is sponsored by Trade Coffee. Instead of blindly guessing what kind of coffee you may enjoy, take the personalization quiz from Trade and receive a selection of coffees that match your taste and preferred brewing method delivered right to your door in Trade's compostable packaging. Be one of the first 100 people to get 50% off your first bag with code Babish50 by using the link in the video description. Now let's get down to the basics of Birria tacos. Alright, so the first thing we gotta do is make a spice paste. So to do that, here I have 8 guajillo chiles for flavor, and 4 chiles de árbol to bring some heat, from which I'm both going to remove the stems and seeds, before I bring them on over to the stovetop to give them a toast. In a dry pan over medium heat, I'm gonna tear up the chilies and toast them for about 5 minutes until they're nice and fragrant but not smoking. I'm also gonna add about 2 teaspoons of whole cumin seeds, and once everybody smells nice and good, I'm gonna add about 2 cups of water. Crank that mixture up to medium-high, bring everybody up to a simmer, kill the heat, and cover, which not only looks cool, but steeping the chilies for 10 minutes also softens them up, which is going to allow us to puree them in a high-powered blender. So into our very favorite blender goes all the chilies and the steeping liquid, 1 entire head of garlic, cloves separated and peeled, 1 teaspoon of Mexican oregano, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground clove. I'm also going to add half a small onion and make a weird face for some reason. We shot this a while ago, I can't remember why I did that. Then depending on how spicy and smoky you like things, I'm going to add 2 canned chipotle chilies and some of their accompanying adobo sauce. Then I want to add enough water to generously cover everything and blitz. We want to blend this guy on high speed for at least a full minute because we want a nice smooth sauce. Then you can give it an optional taste, but it is unseasoned, pretty raw, and pretty spicy. Go ahead and set that aside because now we must contend with our meat. I have here a whole 3.5 pound beef chuck roast, which I'm going to divide into nice stew appropriate chunks. First we're going to separate the 2 sort of lobes of meat that are in a chuck roast. This is going to make cleaning excess fat and connective tissue easier. And you might notice that my cutting board is sliding around a little bit, so don't forget to reinforce your board with a moistened towel, which will lock everything in place so we don't lose any fingers. Like I said, we're going to start by removing any excess fat, connective tissue, sinew, silver skin, all that gross stuff. And then we're cutting this guy up into 2-inch chunks, which is just going to help keep them in whole pieces and make retrieving them from the stew that much easier. I'm plopping these on a sheet pan, sprinkling them with 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, giving them a toss, and letting them sit at room temperature for at least 40 minutes. This is going to help them stay juicy during their long braise. Next up, and this is optional, I've got 2 pounds of oxtails. What little meat these guys have gets tender and delicious when braised, and all the bone marrow and cartilage is going to deeply flavor our sauce. I'm plopping these into a wide stainless steel roasting pan, drizzling them with a little bit of vegetable oil, tossing them around to coat, spreading them out, and then roasting them in a 475 Fahrenheit oven for 15 to 20 minutes or until deeply brown. All this maillard on the surface of our meat is going to bring a lot of flavor to the sauce. Next, I'm adding a 14-ounce can of whole plum tomatoes, all of our beautiful oniony, garlicky spice paste, and just enough water to bring the liquid about halfway up the sides of the oxtails. Then we're going to start nestling our chunks o' chuck in the liquid. We want most of the meat to be submerged, but just one facet of the meat to be sticking out. Then I'm topping with 1 tablespoon of coriander seeds and 1 tablespoon of black peppercorns, and then nestling 2 Mexican cinnamon sticks, or just regular cinnamon sticks if you can't find those, 5 bay leaves, and 3 sprigs of fresh marjoram around the meat in the braising liquid. I'm also going to tuck 1 whole onion quartered into each corner of the pan. Doesn't matter where you put it really, I just think that looks nice. Then this guy's headed into a 350 Fahrenheit oven for 3 hours. Halfway through, we're going to take it out of the oven and give everybody a flip. As you can see, the meat that has not been submerged has formed a beautiful crust, and we want that all over, so we're going to flip everybody over, exposing their previously submerged underbellies, and pop this guy back in the oven for the remaining hour and a half, after which time everybody should emerge with a beautiful deep brown crust, and a paring knife should pass through the meat like it's not even there. Next up, we need to separate our meat and our sauce, so I'm going to tong out our chuck and oxtails onto a large rimmed baking sheet, and using 2 forks, commence to shredding. Nothing too crazy here, you just want small bite-sized pieces for your eventual tacos. And don't forget the meat on the oxtails, that's good stuff. And then we're going to strain the solids out of the liquid, leaving us with a hyper flavorful consomme. Make sure you get every last little itty bitty drop, ladle a couple ladlefuls over your meat to keep it moist, and then everything needs to be covered in plastic wrap and fridged for one very important reason. We want to separate the fat and the consommé. Once the liquid is refrigerated, the fat will solidify in a scoopable layer, which we're going to scoop off and plop into an awaiting fry pan. Dump the consommé into a large saucepan, and then we're headed over to the stovetop, where we have our taco assembling station, which should look something like this. First, the tortillas will be dipped in the melted fat, then transferred over to a ripping hot cast iron skillet filled with the bubbling braised beef and some torn Oaxaca cheese, folded over and fried on both sides. Now, this would normally be the time that I would tell you to make your own corn tortillas, but it's very difficult to get them thin enough so that they can stay flexible and survive the dipping and folding process. So this is one of the few times that you'll hear me say that store-bought corn tortillas are probably your best bet. First, we're going to toast them a little bit on both sides on the cast iron skillet, and then dip them generously in the fat harvested from the consommé. Once it's thoroughly coated on both sides, it's headed back over to the skillet, where it's going to receive its fillings, some of our delicious braised beef, and a healthy helping of Oaxaca cheese. If you can't find Oaxaca cheese, you can just use string cheese, torn into beautiful long shreds like this. Then we're folding the taco over, sort of like a quesadilla, frying on one side for about a minute or until golden brown, flipping, frying for about another minute, and then getting ready to plate up. Stack up at least 3 of these bad boys. Trust me, that is the bare minimum that you're going to want to consume. Serve it with a steaming cup of consommé and some chopped white onion, a few lime wedges, and more chopped onions, some sliced jalapenos, and torn cilantro over top of the tacos. And there you have it, the tacos you've been craving from seeing them on Instagram for the longest time, and finally get to messily try for yourself birria tacos. And sans cilantro, of course, I think we might have stumbled upon one of my new favorite foods. It is beefy, saucy, cheesy, crispy, spicy, and tangy. You know, all of the most important food groups. And while generally speaking it pairs best with a frosty Mexican beer, at the end of the day, beer doesn't keep me alive, coffee does. So thank you to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this episode. Trade has a massive amount of high quality coffees from the nation's top roasters, customized to your preferences and continually evolving to suit your tastes. With their quick and easy quiz, you'll be matched with the best roasters and beans for your brewing practices. For me lately, that's been La Familia Guarnizo, a light Colombian roast with notes of caramel, honey, and clementine. Once you've received your coffee, you can rate what Trade sent to refine your selection on future orders. Be one of the first 100 people to get 50% off your first bag by using code BABISH50 with the link in the video description.